Hello and welcome back to the course. Today we'll be linking our upgrade menu into our game and actually creating the loop that we need to go from the game to the upgrade menu and then back to the game. This can be really simple or really complex depending on how you actually want to link things together. For now, I just want us to be able to go to the upgrade menu, then back to the game, so it should be relatively simple. The complex part actually comes in when we need to think about how we want to handle the full kind of game loop. Now, I actually made a little another little flowchart to kind of show off what I'm thinking. I would love some opinions on this, but yeah, we'll go with it for now and see what needs to be changed as it kind of goes. Now, with that in mind, there are a few things that we need to change as we go, and that is going to be like the karma check system and how the character pays rent and things like that. So let's just move into the flowchart thing, and I will kind of show you what I'm thinking. So this is kind of what I come up with. We've got plan 1 or plan 2. I'm thinking plan 1. Basically, the way these work is we start in the active state, right? That's where we get to jump around and bonk things on the head. That's the active state. And then after we've completed that by some means, we move into the karma check state where it checks our karma and it goes, okay, you are good, you are bad, you've unlocked XYZ thing. And then it moves into the paying off rent, because I want the karma system to be able to affect the rent and the upgrades. So that needs to come first. So it moves into that, and then it moves into the upgrades after we've paid rent, and then it moves back into the active state. Now, plan 2 is kind of a reverse. You do the karma check, the upgrade, and then the rent. Now, the reason why there's two plans with this is this really changes how people need to think about playing when they're playing. And it's one of those things you've got to keep in mind, how your loop affects the mentality of the player. So for the first one, the player doesn't need to think about how much rent they need to pay and how much they need to save, whilst they're upgrading things, right? They can just do the karma check, pay rent. Okay, what they have left over, they can spend on upgrades or save if they want to. And then they can save that and go into the next one and, save more for more rent and things like that. Whereas plan 2 makes it so what ends up happening is the karma check happens, and then they have to sit there and think about how much the rent might cost, or we might have to show them how much the rent might cost. And then they've got to build or keep upgrades based off of that, or pass upgrades based off of that, and then they pay rent, and then they go into the active state. Plan 2, what I would like to call is the stressful plan, because I feel like this adds a lot more stress to what would otherwise be a relatively casual and calm game. So what I'm thinking of doing is going with plan 1. It's a little bit more relaxing. It takes a little bit off of the player's plate. It just feels a little bit better. Now, with that in mind, if I scroll down, I expanded plan 1 a little bit to kind of pseudocode it out, just so we know where we want to go from here. So we've got the active state. After a timer finishes, or the enemies remaining equals 0, we want to do the karma check. Depending on what happens in the karma check, things unlock, or something else happens. We don't need to think about the karma check right now. But after that, we go into the rent state, and then we do a check. Is the rent paid? If it is, we move into the upgrade state, into the active state. If it's unpaid, we lose our house, and we lose. That's it. We just lose the game, and that's kind of the end of the loop. So this leads into another big question, and another big thing about game design that you'll kind of start to realize as you start to design your own games. At some point, even the best laid plans when it comes to game design change a lot. What you originally started out with will more than likely not be what you finish with. And that's because things have changed to make it feel more comfortable, to just feel better. You have to pull down the scope a little bit or increase the scope in certain circumstances. And it's just a thing that you have to realize that things change. So in this instance, what's going to change? Well, our core loop, where we are in the active phase, what do we do in the active phase? Right now, we jump on a bunch of enemies' heads, we collect coins, and that's it. And the thought process originally was to do a dungeon crawler style, go to the next level and go from there. But I never really thought about, well, I did, and now I'm changing it, how you actually end that phase, right? What the end of the phase is. And that's why I have 2 checks here, one for a finishing timer and one for the enemies remaining equals 0. Now, what we could do is spawn in a randomized amount of enemies, and the player just has to survive. And that's pretty much it. They have to survive, they have to collect coins that may drop from the sky. And then, when the randomization of the enemies kind of falls to 0, it ends. Or, and this is what I think we will more than likely be doing this time, we will just go based off of a timer. Okay, we get a timer that runs for 2-3 minutes. That way we can keep the player, short runs, so they can just get in, pick it up whenever they want, and just play. So timer starts, then coins fall from the sky. You have to collect those. If an enemy touches you, you have to bonk it on the head and collect the coin back if you don't mind the karma loss, or a little bit of thinking, but not too much. But the whole point of this is to make it so this is a very casual game. Because if you think of a lot of the, let's say, really successful games out there, one that comes to mind immediately is Brotato. Brotato runs can take anywhere between 10 minutes to, I think, 40, but it can be very casual. You just pick it up, you get in, you have fun, you mess around, you win, you lose, it doesn't matter. If you win, you feel really excited. If you lose, you just start again, or you go about your day and do something else. And that's kind of how I want this to feel. I want you to be able to pick it up, play it for a little bit, and then put it down, and then be like, oh, I want to play that later, and then come back to it. So the timer, in this sense, will just fit a lot better for what I want to go for. This is just one of those things you have to think about, and one of those things that may change as kind of things progress. So we've gone from what could be a kind of dungeon crawler type thing to a more timer-based wave survival type thing, without it being a wave survival, because there's no waves you have to survive. It's just collect as many coins as you possibly can within a given timer. So with that in mind, let's actually move into kind of adding a lot of this stuff to the game. And now that we know the rough plan, of course, let's start by making what I'll call the game state manager. This is just going to be a really simple manager. As the name kind of says, it's going to manage the state that the game is currently in. So we're going to be going from the active state to the karma check state, the rent state, the upgrade state, and best part about it is we can add more states to it, like a pause menu. For instance, we could do a paused state where it just pauses the game for us, it pops up a pause menu, and we can kind of do that from there. And it just easily allows us to add stuff like that, and then we don't have to really think about it. It's just kind of a drag and drop thing at that point. We drag the game manager in, we drop it in, and just it works, right? Now, there's a lot of things that will change with this as we go, of course. Game development, everything changes. So keep that in mind. Things will change and things will hopefully improve. Now, let's actually go and make a game state manager. So how do we do that? Well, first let's look at our manager container. You can see that it's of type node, which means, and so is our collectible manager, it means we're going to want to create this of type node. So node specifically, not node 2D, just node. So to do that, we'll click the plus sign, go to other node, scroll to the top, and click node. Now we'll rename this to game state manager. And we'll go save that under scenes, managers, and then save. Now we'll add a script to this game state manager script, and we'll add the class name, class_name, game state manager. Now I'm going to remove the ready and the process function, and we'll kind of go from top to bottom and kind of figure it out. So what do we know we need? Well, we did say that we want to use a timer. Now, I want to design something else for the timer, but for testing purposes, what we can do is we can highlight the game state manager, hit Control A, we can add a timer, and then we can call this the state test timer for now, and we will end up changing this and then creating a whole new thing for how we time the active phase and other little things we can do with it. So with that created, we're going to pull this in, hold down Control as we drop to create an onReady variable. We'll write as timer at the end of it, so the engine knows that it is literally a timer, and that's it. Now we need to think about what else we want to do. Well, we're going to want to go from the active phase to the upgrade, or the active state to the upgrade state first, right? That's the thing we want to actually test. So to do that, we're going to want an exported variable for our upgrade menu. And I showed this off with the drop handler, how we actually create an instantiation thing based off of a packed scene, right? We have an exported variable typed as packed scene, and then we set it equal to null. Then we hit Control S and save. We can go highlight the game state manager, go to where it says the upgrade menu. We can hit load and go from there. I'm actually going to rename this to upgrade menu scene. That way it's a bit more obvious what this is. This is the packed scene version of the upgrade menu. So now I can just click load, go into scenes, UI, upgrade menu, and upgrade menu.tscn. So we now have the upgrade menu activated or ready to use as a packed scene inside the game state manager. So the next thing we want to do is probably create an enum, right? We've done enums before, we've done enumerated state machines before, and because we don't need a super intensive state machine yet, we will in the future, so the state machine version of this will also change. But because we don't need one yet, we can change this to just an enum state and keep it there. So we'll have an enum state, we'll do the active state as the first state, and then we'll do the upgrade state, there you go, as the final state. Then all we have to do is create a variable for the current underscore state and set that equal to the active state first, because we're always going to want to start in the active state, right? When we go from the main menu to, well, when we create a main menu, when we go from that to the start here, we want to make sure we start in the active state, otherwise the game will be either paused or immediately in the upgrade phase, and that would be a bit weird. So we won't start that, we'll just start in the active state. Now let's go and create our ready function again. And we're going to want to connect the timer for the state test timer. So we want to connect the timeout signal specifically to the script. Now, if you remember how to do that, pause the video and give it a go. If you don't, then what I'm going to do now is show you. All you have to do is grab the timer's name, so in this case it's the state test timer dot timeout dot connect, and then inside of your parentheses you just connect it to a function. We don't have a function, so I'm just going to call this on state underscore timeout, and then I'm going to create a new function. It has 0 parentheses and a void return type, and I'm going to write pass in there. So this is going to be a thing of what do we want to kind of put in here? Well, this is going to be specifically for ending the active state. So what we could actually do is rename this to make it make more sense, is to do on active underscore state, and then we rename it to end, like so. So on active state end, and that renames the function at the same time. If you were worried or confused about how I did that, if you basically click on the string or highlight the string that you want to, or the piece of code that you want to change, you'll see that it's highlighted in both places. It's going, okay, these two existed here, this is where they are. And then you press Control D, and it will actually highlight both of them and give you a cursor at the same time. So now I can kind of type things as I go, and it will fill in both for us. Now I need to do that. There we go. Undo that with Control Z. So we now have our new function and our state end. So on active state end, basically all it needs to do is change the current state and set that equal to the upgrade state, because that's the state we're going to want to go into for now, just for testing. Let's go and between our ready and on active state end functions, create our process function, because we're going to need process. All right, pass for now. Now we need to think about a few other things, right? So one thing that we have yet to talk about is how we plan on leaving the upgrade state and going back into the active state. Now there's a few ways we can do this, and I think the easiest way is to actually start programming a little bit of our upgrade menu now. And by that I mean if we go to the upgrade menu scene, specifically like the full upgrade menu, not the upgrade option, just the upgrade menu, we add a script to it, And then we give it a class name of, so class underscore name. We give it a class name of upgrade menu. And then all we have to do here is, really simple. We just drag the button over at the very bottom, typecast that as a button. And then we connect one of the button's signals inside of the ready function here. What signals does a button have? Well, click on the button, go to node. It's being grumpy with me. There we go, go to node. And then take a look. We want button down emitted when the button starts being held. You'll see there it says it has no extra inputs or anything like that, nothing in the parentheses. So what we want to do is just do button dot button down dot connect. I cannot spell connect. And we want to connect that to on underscore exit underscore button underscore down. Create a new function for that signal, give it a void return type. And what do we want to do when the button gets pressed? Well, for now, we will just print I have been pressed. So this will basically give us the ability to go and test this and make sure that this works. Now, to actually test it, we need to do, actually get the upgrade menu inside of the game and get it running. So let's go and do that. We'll go back to the game state manager script. And inside of the process function, we are going to do a really simple thing. We are just going to do a very quick match function. So what match will do is it will take a certain variable and then basically see what its value is and match it to a certain thing. So we want to take the current state, we want to match that, and we want to just use this to check what state we are in, right? So if current state is equal to the active state, like so, what do we want to do? Well, we can just write pass for now. And then if we, after pass, we can just create a new line, and then we want to check the upgrade state. Once again, we'll write pass. So this is just a really simple check on what state we are currently in. So now we have to think about what we want to do. Well, if we are in the upgrade state, we are going to want to pause the game, right? We're going to want to make sure the player can't randomly die or fall off a ledge or collect more coins or just do something they shouldn't. We want everything to basically freeze. Now, I'm going to create a new function for a lot of the upgrade state code here, just below process. I'm just going to call this func run underscore upgrade underscore state. Give it a void return type. And the first thing I'm going to want to do, of course, is pause the game. How do we pause the game? Godot actually has some amazing functionality for this. In a lot of different engines, it can actually be really complex to kind of pause everything, to stop everything from working all at once. In Godot, it's very simple. You use get underscore tree, not get child, get tree. And then you just write dot paused equals true. This will pause the whole game. Now, there is a thing with this. We can test this very quickly. So let's actually go test it. Let's go to the main menu or the main scene here. In the manager container, let's use Control-Shift-A to add. And we will add the game state manager, like so. We will make sure that the upgrade menu is selected. It is. And there is one thing we need to go and do now. If we go to the scene of the game state manager, click the timer, we'll click one shot on the timer and then change this to 2 seconds. Oh wait, I know why that's not happening. It's because I'm not calling the run upgrade state yet. That took my brain a second. So make sure to call run upgrade state in the upgrade state under process for the match functionality. So the reason why that the timer isn't working is because auto start also needs to be pressed because it's not starting otherwise. So if I press play and now I let it run, you'll see the entire game froze. I can't do anything, the enemies aren't moving, the coins have stopped doing things, the game is paused. But of course there's no way to get out of that right now. And this is also running consistently. So what we can do here, because in the process it's basically going to keep running this function the time. We don't want to keep setting the tree to pause. We can just do if get underscore tree dot paused is equal to true. Actually, we'll just do is equal to false. Do this. That way, if it is equal to false, it'll do this, and then it'll just stop basically trying to set it to true afterwards. So that just holds that check in place for us. And now that we've got that, and we know that the game is doing that, we now need to just figure out how we want to instantiate the upgrade menu into our game. Now, if you remember anything about the coin video specifically, where we handled the drops and things like that, give yourself like a chance to just pause the video and go and try it and see if you can figure it out yourself, because this is where you're going to start to probably remember a few things and start learning how to do things, because the truth is I've taught you pretty much everything you need to know to just start doing things. So pause it, give it a try. For those of you that don't remember, and if you have unpaused the video, let's go and do this ourselves. So we're going to want to check two things. The first thing is if an upgrade menu already exists, and the second thing is if a UI container exists. So let's check if the upgrade menu exists first. So I'm going to create a new variable at the very top here, and it's going to just be called upgrade, not car, var upgrade underscore menu underscore exists. It's going to be of type bool or boolean, and it'll be immediately set to false. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write if inside of our run upgrade state, if upgrade menu exists is equal to true, return. Because we don't want this code anymore or running after this if the upgrade menu already exists. Because what will happen is, if you remember what I said about it getting paused, because it's in the upgrade state here, or because it's in the process here, it will just instantiate and spawn an endless number of upgrade menus if we don't do this check. So now we've got to think about how we change that check, change that if boolean basically, or that boolean to true, and stop it from happening. Well, the very first thing we can do is we want to actually create the instantiated version of our upgrade menu, right? So we're going to call this the new underscore upgrade underscore menu. We're going to typecast, actually we won't typecast it, we'll set it equal to an upgrade menu scene dot instantiate, and then after instantiate we're going to write as upgrade menu. That way we get some of the IntelliSense for what we want to do. We're going to need that at some point. Then we're going to go and grab the UI container. So we did the node extension thing before as well. Let's go and do that. Let's go var UI underscore container, because this is where we're going to want to put it, is equal to node extensions dot get underscore UI container. Then we'll do one more check. If the UI container is equal to null, return. Because if it is equal to null, then this code just will not run and it will throw some errors and it will crash the game, and we don't want that. We want the game to run if it doesn't work, because being able to just see that it's not working will be more than enough in this instance. Now what we want to do is go to the UI container dot add child, because we're going to want to add the new upgrade menu to it. So we'll go new upgrade menu, and then we will just go and change the upgrade menu exists and set that equal to true. So what this will basically do is it will run the code once, it will stop pausing or stop trying to pause the tree, and if the upgrade menu already exists, basically if this is always true, it will then just not run the code anymore. And that's kind of what we want, right? We don't want it to infinitely instantiate things, we just want it to instantiate it once and be done with it. And this is the best way right now for us to do that without us going straight into some more hardcore state machine logic and a few other things. Now, let's go and just test that. We'll go hit play. We'll let things run. Okay, it worked. We can mess with our menu mostly, which you'll probably start to notice. If I go and click the full screen button here, you'll see that everything scales. Do a check and make sure everything scales for you. If it doesn't, let me know and I will tell you how to fix it in the comments. But things do work, kind of. We can kind of click on these buttons a little bit. We can highlight them, but we can't use the scroll. Now, why is that? Well, it's actually really simple. It's because we are doing this. We are pausing the tree, which means things that should work won't work because they are completely paused, which means if we're pausing it, how do we unpause something specific? Well, if we go to the upgrade menu, we go and click on the upgrade menu's root, and then we go down in the inspector to process, you'll see there's this mode here for inherit. And if we highlight mode, it says, can be used to pause or unpause the node, or make the node paused based on the scene tree, or make it inherit the process from its parent. And then it tells you kind of what these are. Pausable stops the process when the scene tree is paused. Okay, when paused, only process when the scene tree is paused. Basically, what that's saying is don't run this code if the actual tree or the game is paused, or run this code if the game is paused, and don't if it's not. So what we can do here is we can change this to when paused. Now we can hit Control S and save, and you'll see here that it just grayed out our entire upgrade menu. Let's go click play, give it a little test, full screen this, and you'll see I can now mess with these things and get them to kind of function. Like, we can click the buttons, you can see them blinking, we can mess with the descriptions, but of course now there is no way for us to leave the upgrade menu. Well, if we remember correctly, we did this, and if you look into the output, every time I clicked the exit button, which I will do one more time, click, 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 I have been pressed. So this still works, we can still do this stuff, even though the tree is paused. But this also means we now get to use that exit button to exit the menu, right? So how do we plan on doing that? Because you've got to remember, if we just queue through the menu, the state won't change yet. But we're going to want to queue through the menu. So logically speaking, what we could do here is we could add a signal to the top of our upgrade menu here. And then we can basically fire that signal and connect it inside the game state manager, or we could just connect this button specifically to the game state manager. So what I'm just going to do is create a new signal for this because I like to have a lot more controllability. It's like an extra line of code or two, but it's just kind of worth it in my eyes. So we're going to create a new signal. It's going to be called actually we'll just call it exit underscore button underscore pressed. Exit button pressed, yep. And now we will emit that in the on exit button down function. So exit button pressed dot emit, and then after that we'll do the really simple thing and we will queue free, which means I can now close this or remove this print statement because we won't need it. Control S and save. And now we need to connect this signal to the game state manager. Well, how do we do that? Well, we've actually given this we've coupled the game state manager and the upgrade menu together with this export. And what we can do is if we come down to the upgrade menu or run upgrade state, and we come all the way to the bottom, after we've added this as a child and set just before we set the menu to existing to true, we can actually grab the new upgrade menu. And because we typecasted it as a upgrade menu, we can use dot exit button pressed dot connect, and then we can connect that to another function. So we're going to connect that to on underscore upgrade underscore state underscore end, And then we can create a new function. We can do that below the onActiveState end. Give it a void return type. And then we just set the current state equal to the active state. And that's it. That's pretty much it entirely linked. Now there's one thing we have to remember. We're still setting the tree to paused. So when we switch to the active state here, we are going to want to get underscore tree, then set the paused to false. Because there's no extra code we need to run in the active state, that will pretty much be fine for now. So let's click play. Let it click over to the upgrade menu. Okay, this all still functions. Let's click skip. And as you see, it didn't change. And why did it not change? Well, it's because the game state manager process is equal to inherit, which means it's going to pause because the entire tree is paused. We don't want that to happen. We want the game state manager to kind of always be able to run. So we'll change the process mode to always. We will click play and we will try again. There you go, all runs, click, and it resets the game. Well, it doesn't entirely reset the game. That's actually one thing we might want to think about, is it doesn't actually reset the scene. So if we want to make sure the scene consistently gets reset and the enemies end up respawning, because right now I can go collect this coin and now I'm in the mid-air, I hit skip and I fall back down and that's it. Nothing reset, nothing changed. And we haven't really stored any extra information or values or variables and things like that to kind of go into the upgrade menu or things like that. Well, this is where my next big thing really kind of comes in with the game design element of this. The active phase now needs to be changed before we can move into storing extra values, keeping track of how many coins we have across multiple scenes. Before we do that, we are probably going to want to actually get our core state or our active state into a place that we will not want to change it for a little while, which means we're going to want to start setting up the functionality for coins falling from the sky, for more enemies spawning and despawning, and a kind of a different play area for us to mess around in, something that actually fits more what we plan on going for. And that's what we will be doing in the next video. For now, you've actually learned something really kind of cool. That is, how to pause the tree and actually start adding menus and things like that. You'll be able to go off and do that yourself, combined with a lot of the other knowledge I've shown you. So keep that in mind. And so far, everybody that's been following, you've been doing an amazing job. On Tuesday, there will be a video about a little update which will contain some really good information, some stuff that I know some of you are really excited for. So keep an eye out for that. I will see you Tuesday. Actually, I will see you Tuesday. Thank you for watching. I hope you're having a great day and you are having a great game dev journey, and I will see you then. Bye.